You are listening to the Level Up Your Gaming Podcast, episode 132, Scary and Terror. In today's episode, we talk about scary and terror in games. We discuss how to do different types of scary and how to build atmosphere for terror. We also discuss different elements to include in games and ambiance to enhance the terror. Also, check out part 3 of The Devil Went Down to Jersey on D20 To Curtain. Part 2 can be found on our podcast, and part 1 can be found on A Fool's Quest. Part 4 will be dropping on Monday, 10/24, on HiBRiD Theory Podcast. See the links in the show notes below. If you'd like to participate in the discussion or leave us feedback, you can contact us at levelupyourgamingpodcast@gmail.com or find us on Facebook at facebook.com/levelupyourgaming. If you like the content and want to hear more of the show, subscribe and will ensure you don't miss an episode. New episodes come out almost every Wednesday. Also, please review, tell a friend about the podcast, or share with your gaming group. Now sit back and enjoy the episode. Welcome into the Level Up Your Gaming Podcast. My name is Aaron, and joining me virtually via Zoom, we got Josh.
How you doing, Aaron?
I'm doing good, Josh. How are you?
I'm enjoying the season. You know, it's getting cold out. I mean, leaves aren't turning yet, but it's getting cold out. We made squash soup. It's good.
It's almost that spooky time of year, you know?
It is that spooky time of year. I got all my decorations out. I'm planning things. It's going to be a good time.
You got the weird Tim Burton tree?
Oh, definitely.
No, and to kind of go along with that theme, we're going to be talking about scary and terror. So we had a little conversation. I came over. If you're listening to this episode today, this is probably releasing around Halloween and I probably have a little baby in my arms, so I'm not talking about podcast stuff at the moment. Scary versus terror. I had this conversation with you a couple nights ago, and the thing that I talked about was how it's hard to kind of set up a scary game that's a one-shot. Because with terror, you can kind of do this kind of slow build. You can sort of have this feeling of dread. And a lot of systems lend themselves to these types of things. But to make something really scary for a group of players, you can't just tell them, this is scary, and go, ooh. Like, it doesn't work that way. It's more of a feeling that something is scary. And you brought up some stuff about ambiance and other things like that. I think you could do it both ways, but I want to kind of pick your brain on it.
Yeah. So my opinion, my thoughts on this, I've run a couple of scary one-shots or like episodes within a longer game. And they're separated out from the regular game. It's like we're taking a Halloween break and you guys are going, you know, like the beach episode of an anime or something where they're going to do a Halloween thing. And I think having that separation from a longer game and changing the theme up can help if you are doing, you know, a specific Halloween or a specific scary theme. And ambiance is a big part of that. When I've done my spooky games, you know, if you got people around, you turn down the lights, you put on the crackling yellow candles and the mood music, a little bit of scary music, and if you can, you know, you get out the fog machine and go all nuts with it. But even online, we did the same thing. We put on some ambient music, laid out some specific scenes, gave, you know, visuals of haunted environments and whatnot, and sort of led into it. And I think whether you're doing scary, you're doing terror, the ambiance that you're putting your players into is going to get them in the mood for the actual scares, the actual terror. Because if you're just sitting around and it's bright and you're doing the same thing you're always doing, you are going to have that sort of relaxed, I'm not detached from the situation.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. It's the that ambiance is one thing to help build up a scary thing. I guess if you think about playing like any horror game, like on a like a video game console, it always makes it scarier if the lights are off and you've got things. You're using other psychological mind tricks to help build
Yeah.
up that scary nature, and using physical cues to kind of build up the scary nature. And I like how you mentioned the music, because I honestly think that music is one of the number one ways that you can build dread and kind of a scary notion into your players. And in a very short game, or a one-shot game, or kind of this spin-off game that you're doing there, it's super hard to get the players to invest in something. Now, the good thing about building it into like a long campaign and doing this like side story is that you have one thing that works really well for you, and that is stakes. Okay, stakes are scary, because if you're not, I'm not talking about the stakes that you stake a vampire with. I'm talking about haha, I see you
Not
there.
like a big old T-bone.
Not a big old T-bone. I'm talking about your characters. Your players are already invested in their characters, and they are scared about losing the characters. So the dangerous, terrifying situation that you present them with makes that situation even more scary, because they've built in the stakes for the characters. Now, in a one-shot game, that's a one-off that you've created new characters for, you typically don't have those stakes. Players, I've often heard the line when you're playing in a one-shot or with a pre-gen character, drive it like you stole it. So that's not a good thing when you're trying to build a scary game.
No, but you can still put some terror or horror into that, but it isn't the same like existential dread you've got from you might be losing a character. It's more of the it could be schlocky horror. Your standard sitting down and watching one of these terrible horror movies. The first thing comes to mind is like Lake Placid. Did you ever see that movie?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's got Betty White feeding an alligator, and it's fantastic. It is a dumb horror movie, but it is a horror movie, and people do get invested in the scares that are in there, even though overall there's not much going on about scary. But I think that the ambiance you were saying earlier was that you can't just go and tell people this is scary. We're going to do a scary thing now, because that sort of ruins it. But what you are doing with the ambiance is you are saying this is scary. We're going to do scary now, without actually saying it. Right?
Yes.
And then you go in and you have to pick what type of scary you're doing. If you're doing a long-term thing, you can do more of a slow build. You can do sort of a terror. You've got some of those things already pre-built in there, in terms of caring for the characters. If you're doing something short, you have to look for a different type of scary. It could be, like I said, schlocky. You can do monsters, or monster of the week, or something like that, or haunted mansion, whatever. Or you can do jump scares and violence and whatnot, and either put it into an environment that they know about. You're playing new characters, but it's in the world that your other characters play in, or real world, or something like that. I was talking with my wife about, what movies, what books does she find scary? And she said something to me. She said that she needed to have a buy-in. It needed to have something that she could relate to in order for it to match up. Now, if you're doing, high fantasy, if you're doing sci-fi, the scary comes in when it takes that fantastical environment that you're working with and brings it back to sort of a reality. the Event Horizon was a pretty terrifying movie. Did you see that?
Ages ago, yeah.
Ages ago. And you know, you're flying around in space, you're coming across a big old ship, it's weird, but then it goes pure body horror. Body horror is a great thing to throw in to a scary game if you want to, like, you know, if you're doing short term, scary body horror really messes with people. I recommend it if you can get away with it.
Yeah, again, I'm going to refer you to KYP, know your players, because some people are going to really be turned off by some of these themes there. But one of the things I think you mentioned there that was really unique to Lori, and I think this is true in everybody when you're trying to tell a scary story, is, and I've brought this up, and Jared and I have brought this up in the podcast ages ago. The things that are really, really scary are not, you know, evil, terrible monster in front of you, and you know, like it's this, it's everything being normal, and you taking making very small changes to things that are normal. So things that would be normal would be like walking down a crowded city street. Things that would be abnormal but still normal would be walking down a city street, but nobody's there. Okay? Why is nobody there? These things start to creep into your mind. Okay? What has changed? The darkness, always abnormal. Okay? You're walking through a, you know, abandoned house or an abandoned tunnel, and it's dark, and all you have is a flashlight, and your peripherals suck. Like, those things are scary because you don't know what's going to come out of anywhere. You don't know what's going to happen next. And the situation is normal, but it's abnormal. Something has changed in the situation. So if you know you are, let's say you come across a pool of blood, you know, as you're walking through this cave, and now you're really deep into the cave, and you don't know where you went, and you've kind of gone through this labyrinth of stuff, and then you come across maybe a dead body. Okay, now it's scary. Now you have this fear of, oh God, I walked myself right into a trap, and now I'm, you know, what happens next? Or you come across a carcass of a dead creature there. Okay, well, where's the other one? What's going on? Those very small, slight changes to normal situations are always very scary. And then the other thing, and I just had brought it up there, one of the other things that you can always use as a tool in a scary game is, and I would advise doing this more than the other thing, is you can tell your players to go into a scary situation. But most of your players, if they see a scary forest, will not go into the scary forest. Okay? They won't go into the scary forest because they know it's a bad place to go. Okay?
It's the frogs in the boiling water.
Yes. But if you say, I need you to go into the forest, they don't see it as a scary forest. And once they're in the forest, you turn it into a scary forest. Now they're trapped. Now it's scary because, oh my God, I've walked right into a trap. Okay.
Yeah. No, you started out with a simple situation that, you know, you get your players invested in doing a thing, and then turn the tables on them. You know, they're solving a crime, they're hunting down a murderer, or they're rescuing some girl's lost sheep in the woods or something. You know, something innocuous. And then it just gets bad. And then it just gets bad story is a fantastic, you know, because you can just keep building on it. You can do different things with it. Making a normal situation scary by making it abnormal is a wonderful shorthand for just like tapping into that buy-in. When we're talking about, you know, finding something that somebody understands and then twisting it on them, making it something that they are now afraid of. And that doesn't require necessarily a long-term character, you can still do that in the short term. Yeah, it requires more work on your build up, your storytelling, the environment that you're putting them into, making it as descriptive as possible without losing some of that, I don't know, opportunity for the players to actually feel like they're there instead of just you telling them a story.
Yeah, the real goal in making anything scary or terror, like, or a terror, any horror that you're trying to do, is you need to get the players invested. Even if it's in a one shot, you need to get the players invested into the situation they're in. Okay, so if they're, and that might be pulling the rug out from underneath them in a one shot to make the situation very tough and scary in that moment. And like I said, KYP, know your players, know the things that maybe might be off limits. If you body horror can be very good because it's gruesome, it's unsettling,
Mm-hmm.
and it does bring up a lot of instinctual fears within us, and so you're trying to play off of those things on people when you're trying to do scary.
Only use it if you can.
Yes.
Don't throw it at just anybody, because people get really, it is a sensitive subject, but that's why it works. But the same thing can be done with like children. Children are fantastic in scary situations. You hear a child crying out in the middle of the woods. You want to go help them, but you know that that's a trap. You can hear a baby crying in an abandoned house. Yeah, don't go for that. That's obviously they're going to kill you. But at the same time, that can hit a lot of nerves too. You have to know your players when you're doing a scary story. You can't just go hitting all their triggers and expect them to come out on the other end actually still ever playing a game with you. So,
mm-hmm. And the other thing that you should be trying to focus on as well when you're trying to hit scary stories, scary notes, is that there has to be a sense that there is no escape from a situation, or that you now feel trapped in the situation that's in front of you. The escape can come. That's part of the overcoming a scary situation. You're trying to find the escape.
I like doing it the other way. I like giving them the sliver or the hope that there is an escape and showing them a way out, and it's just a way further in. And then, as they get in there, this is obviously one shots are best with this. One shots that end with everybody dead, and it's just like a bad situation that nobody survives. That's a lot of fun for me. Probably not for them. So, know your players.
Yeah, I wouldn't go the route of wiping the party, because I think triumph. Again, it depends on the theme you're trying to go with there. Like, I talked to Jared about a horror game a while ago in like a one shot, and I was like, so how does this end? How do we get, what's the ray of hope at the end of the game? Or like, how do you overcome the game? And he's like, oh, this is kind of like one of those fade to black moments, realizing that you've unleashed the zombie apocalypse upon the world. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of disappointing. But in a one shot, it works. So in a one shot, you can sort of break a lot of rules in terms of getting to scary. I think giving a win, like a minor win, so not killing all your players, but then realizing as you kind of epilogue out of it or hit the end of the game that what you just tried to prevent has basically already spread, or the world is already feeling the ramifications of what you fought, or
they've saved themselves for one night.
Yes.
And the next night is going to be so much worse, that now that they've been marked with blood. you know,
Yeah, so those are themes that can work, which is you gave your players a win, but at the end, it's kind of like a tragic ending. Okay, it
mhm.
doesn't. There isn't a lot of hope in the end itself, which I think is fine. I think that's a good way to do a scary game, especially if it's a one shot. If you're doing a long term campaign, you better have a way for the players to come out of that and feel like they won at the end. Unless
Yeah.
you're trying to set up a part two for next year, and then of course.
Oh yeah. Well, obviously, the bad guy, just because you kill him doesn't mean they're dead. That is absolutely horror number 101 right there.
Well, so that actually brings me up to the other really important thing in a scary game, and I have strong opinions on this. Maybe you disagree. Is the bad guy that you eventually present, and I talk about this for all bad guys, so it definitely holds true here. Monsters are only as scary as long as you cannot put a bullet in them, or harm them, or defeat them. The moment that you allow your players to do any of those things, the monster becomes a lot less scary. So,
we had this conversation on Friday. Is that in any horror themed game, the moment it falls apart, the terror falls apart, is the moment the combat begins, and people are doing damage, and then it's a slow slog to the end of the game, which is great as a finale, but you've got to leave that combat all the way to the end. The bad guy or bad guys that you're running with for whatever horror game, my personal opinion, and I, was looking through a bunch of different movies and a bunch of different books and a bunch of different stories that I've seen and played. You show the handiwork of the bad guy at the beginning in, before you introduce them. And then when you introduce them in a way that they can't, they're in the shadows, they're moving through the background, they're coming for you, they're taking away your companions, NPCs are falling left and right, and you build up the tension without actually showing the monster. You look at horror movies, the ones that show the monster early, those monsters are tanks. You get your Jason Voorhees, you get your Alien from Aliens, you get your Freddy Krueger. Okay, Freddy shows up and takes people, and they've got no way to stop him.
Yeah, they can't be killed in conventional ways. I mean, they're
till the end, when it absolutely, it's just just stab him once, he's dead. But the other scary monsters, the ones that can be taken out, they're always in the shadows, moving, and you don't know what's going on. They're the cannibals from The Descent, or stuff like that, where they're in the background. They're there. You can hear them clawing, scraping, gnashing.
You can see the product of their work, but you never see them until you're ready to confront them. Or if you do see them, you see them in a situation that they are. Is it that you're unconfrontable? I mean, there are ways that you can portray the monster, but you don't want it to, if it's in the shadows, you can never catch a good glimpse of it. Okay? So something's there. You now instill that there is a physical being that is also part of this story that you're telling. And then you see what happens after that. You take it one step further. You see what goes on after that.
Now, darkness is fun for this. And I mean this in both an ambient sense and in game. There is something primal about, that the fear of the dark. We can't see it. We don't know what it is. And if you keep your lights low when you're playing the game, or you're playing at night, it helps. Especially if you're in person, you got the good music going, you got the lights down real low, you talking softly, so they got to listen in, and you just lay it into them. They can't see. you talk about how the torches go out, or all the lights in the ship shut down because of a power failure, and you can hear in that quiet of space something's coming, and it can build a lot of tension because what you can't see, you can hear, you can feel, you maybe even taste, the metallic taste of blood in the air or something like that. Great. You invoke the senses, but the sight, because humans are, so dependent on their sight, not describing what they see or keeping that monster away from them until it is that time, lets them think about it, lets them imagine what it could possibly be. And that's always more scary than what you actually end up seeing. And what are we doing on a tabletop game if not invoking imagination?
That's the key. Again, you're trying to get them to invest in. It's really, really critical, more so than anything else, to have your players focused in the scene. The more tunnel vision they are through the scene, and they've got blinders on to the rest of the world, the more that they are engrossed, the better the scary effect is going to be. What's going to happen as you go through it is you're going to have players lose focus, and that's fine. They're going to. It's really hard to stay super intense all the way through. So you're going to have to. You're going to have to find a way to sort of ebb and flow your way through it, because you'd rather be controlling when they lose their focus and when they try to break the scary tension with a joke or something else that they do, and you want to be able to bring them back. But even if they do break the immersion themselves, let it happen, let it pass, and then work them back into it. Slowly work the scene back. Don't feel rushed to do something just because somebody, made a joke about how spooky and dark the forest is. Okay? Don't feel like you need to then rush and get the monster out there. No. Let them come back into it. They'll come back into it. If they are already starting to kind of nervously react to things you are doing, then you are in a good spot. You've already kind of captured the audience and you've brought them into that world, and now you're able to bring them along for this scary ride that is going to be going through this very spooky experience. And yeah.
Pay attention to what actually does trigger that too. Just because you've played with these people before, you know them. If you haven't done a scary game before with them, people have different reactions to different fears. Pay attention to what motivates them in a scary environment, or what actually triggers that fear response in them. I'm not saying you should capitalize on their fear and take advantage of them, but lean into it. If you want a scary game, you need to know what actually is scary for people. Some people have fears of things, and rightly so, and other people have fears of stuff that you may not think is scary to you, but is definitely scary to them. And give them relief. Don't just pound them with scary, because sometimes that is too much and then you're going to lose your players. But bring them, you want a scary game, you want tension, you want terror. There is an edge. Know where that is. Don't go over it. Make it a fun time without alienating your players.
Yes. You want to make it. You want to make sure that you are respecting their boundaries, and also it can't be scary the whole time. Okay, there's got to be moments of lightness and brevity in the whole thing. Otherwise, you're pulling too much on your players. And like Josh just said, don't keep digging into the same thing that's scary, because you might push a player so far that they're like, listen, I don't want to do this anymore.
No.
Okay?
Yeah. And absolutely, if you think that your players are you know, uncomfortable, throw in the empty room that has nothing, and just as like, it is a relaxing spot. It is a moment of peace in whatever hell you're throwing them through, because that little relief, that escape from everything else that's going on, will keep them involved. It is that breath of fresh air that keeps them going. But then you throw, they step back into the next room and it's worse than before. They'll keep going because now they think that there is some sort of relief. There is that, that possibility that things are going to get better. So you can give your players a little bit of relaxation and bring the tension down at that point, so that you can continue and push it for the final push on the end. And I think that's a great way to keep your players invested, without making them too stressed out or making them want to end a game early. Don't drive your people crazy. We're here to have a good time.
Exactly. Don't make them so upset that that,
no, definitely
not that they don't want to continue or anything like that. And the truth is that if you miss the mark and for some reason the game is not as scary as you had hoped it to be, scary in a one shot, scary in an offset situation is just, it's tough. It's really tough to get people to invest in that moment and to stay really focused in that moment. So don't kick yourself as well if it doesn't work, because see what does work, and then maybe you can implement it in the next scary game. It's sort of a process, especially if you've never run something that's scary, or if you've never gotten a scary rise out of your players to this point, because you will find the things that make the players itch, make their skin crawl, make them feel scared in a game, and it's using those cues that is going to make it possible for you to execute a very scary game the next time that you do it.
Well, and don't be afraid of running a non-scary game. I talked earlier about this in deciding what sort of scary you want to do, and the schlocky horror is a lot of fun. You want to do Abbott and Costello Meet the Werewolf. Your players could have a lot of fun with that, especially if they're not into the whole scary game. And you can have a Halloween-themed, one-shot or adventure. May not be, full frights all the way, but you can throw a couple of scares into it, a schlocky horror thing. And humor as a aperitif for horror is really good. Some of my favorite horror movies have a lot of humor involved in them. I really enjoyed Cabin in the Woods, and that's just loaded with it. So
that's true. I guess there are other ways to do scary games. Whenever I think about it, I'm always thinking about how do you get the players to just be going.
You're talking pure on Hell House. Yeah, I get it. But sometimes you got to lean into the humor, because if you are, joking around, having a good time, and something terrible happens, that's bringing back to that you're in a normal situation and the abnormal happens, and that's now what's going on. And that can really, lead into it. We were talking earlier before this about X-Files, and some of the best scary X-Files episodes are just that. It's a humorous situation, and then it gets bad. And then it goes bad is a wonderful way to run a scary game.
That's true. That's a good point. So there's a lot of ways to execute it. More than one way to scare your players.
Or skin a cat.
Skin a cat. I was going to say skin a cat, but then I was like, we'll use the one that's apropos for this, which is scare your players.
Skin a player.
Skin a player.
Don't skin your players.
Don't skin your players. Unless it's in the game, then you might want to skin a player. Unless they're not into that, then maybe you avoid it.
Only if they solve the Lamont configuration. No. So,
do you have anything else you want to add to this one, Josh? Any other points you want to make about scary games, terror games, anything like
that? Be free if you're doing a one shot to steal everything you can from popular culture. All the horror movies, all the scary TV shows. Raid them for all the gems and joys.
Yes, if you don't feel bad by taking an idea, because there's a lot of people who don't watch any scary things, and you can mix and match. This is the one time I would say you don't need to be the one super creative here creating your scary monster.
No.
I guess there is also the idea of defeating. If you do want your players to defeat the monster, there's one other point that we talked about on Friday, and I'll bring it up here at the end, is you can do it two ways. You can have them be able to riddle it with bullets and kill it, okay? Or you said, Josh, that you like to do more of the MacGuffin style.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
If you're going to have a monster, a baddie, that you don't want them to be able to just kill with swords and spears or guns and laser beams or whatnot, have them have to run and do a bunch of stuff or get a thing done, so that they are moving the object to a different place, or they're stealing the book and lighting it on fire, or they are so you don't defeat the monster in a conventional way, and you have they will have to have discovered it along the way and how to defeat this thing. They will learn that it's undefeatable. They'll learn that there's a method to banish it, and then they've got to perform it. And this, gives them those opportunities. I like that.
Yeah, I think that it offers you a different way to, I've talked about gimmicks in games. It's a way to sort of get to vanquish evil in a different way, and vanquish a monster in a different way. And I feel like it is wholly appropriate for the thematic nature of the game that you're doing, to have a gimmicky, boss there at the end.
Yeah. No, that's pretty much it. That's all I got.
All right. Well, let us know about your thoughts on running scary games, even a scary one-shot game, how you've been successful with it. Any good successful Halloween games that you've run. Do you like doing the thematic thing? Level up your gaming podcast at gmail.com or facebook.com/levelupyourgaming. Also, the podcast is on YouTube, so smash the like button there. Otherwise, review the podcast, subscribe to the podcast, recommend it to a friend. Just get the word out there, and good luck running your scary games. That'll wrap us up for the week. For Josh, I'm Aaron. Have a good week, everyone.
Bye.